Welcome everybody from Akira Foundation and Learn Autism. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to allow people into the room and then we'll get started. Thank you. Okay. Welcome everyone. I'm Alison Sarah, Marketing Director at Learn Autism, and I'm very excited to welcome you all today to our first webisode in India. On behalf of the Learn Autism team, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the founder and chairman of Akira Foundation, Mr. Mohammed Abdullah Aziz Akira, and the wonderful team at the Akira Foundation for working with us to make this webisode possible today. So thank you so much. Before we get started, and I introduce our guests, I just wanted to run through some housekeeping for the webisode and during the webisode. If you can kindly keep yourselves muted, you are very welcome to turn your cameras on. We would love to see you. If you are not able to see me alongside the presentation, then please click view in the top right-hand corner of your screens and hit side-by-side gallery. And then you will be able to see the presenter and also the slides. We will be taking questions in the chat, which we will be able to answer in the questions and answers at the end of the presentation, time permitting. If I can just ask, when you're writing your questions in the chat, please can you remember to include your full name and email address? And if we don't have time to get to your question during the questions and answers session, we will aim to get back to you because we'll have your full name and your email address. So we will first start with a congratulations to the winner of the webisode logo contest, Mr. Mohammed Jasil. So congratulations to Mohammed, and you've done a wonderful job, so thank you so much. I think you'll all agree he's done a great job with that. So without further ado, we wanted to make a start by welcoming you with a wonderful video from Akira Foundation explaining more about the fantastic work that they do. So here we go. Sorry guys, for anybody who can't hear this, we are just working on the audio now, for anybody who cannot hear.
You may need to optimize for sound.
We'll be with you in just a second.
I may be able to show the video from this end.
Thanks, Stephen.
You want me to try?
I think we've just figured this issue.
बोलना नहीं स्टार्ट होगी, कोई सेटिंग नहीं हो रही। बोलना नहीं छोड़ दिया, अभी कोई सेटिंग कर रही है।
Okay, apologies for that. We have a sound situation with the video, but we will try our best to get that to you in a few minutes' time. I would like to move on to one of our guests for today, Dr. Stephen Shore. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to one of our founding members at Learn Autism, Dr. Shore, who is going to be talking to us today about the 4 A's of autism. So welcome, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning from Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all to talk about the 4 A's of autism. So let's get that set up. And here we go. No, it seems to have flipped away. Let's see if I can get it back.
We're having technicals this morning.
Yeah, I don't know where it went. Yeah, it suddenly disappeared. So I'm gonna have to get that back. It did look really nice.
We know. We know it's Stephen from this side. Is there anything we can do from this side?
All right, it's coming back.
Okay.
All right, I think it's on the way back. And hopefully these 4 A's of autism will not flip away again. All right, got to launch.
Here we go. Stephen, we just lost you for a second, but I think you're back with us now, which is great.
All right.
Okay, so Dr. Shore, we'll hand the stage to you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Please let me know if there's any technical difficulties. I do have a little sign on the bottom that says my screen sharing is paused, but maybe I shouldn't believe everything I read. So we'll carry on and look at the 4 A's of autism. The idea that we can unlock the capacity for autistic people to lead fulfilling and productive lives, and to make that the rule rather than the exception. And by working together, the Akira Foundation and Learn Autism, that's a real pathway to make that happen. So as we think about autism, the first thing to do is to get into the mind of the autistic individual with the game of what is the difference between the picture on the top and the picture on the bottom. And as you study these pictures, you may notice, for example,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Stephen. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We can't actually see your screen.
Can you unshare and share again?
All right, let's stop the share.
Okay, try again now.
Yeah, it was telling me that it was paused.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really interesting. And when I unshared the screen, it went away again. So let's see if we can bring it back.
Maybe open it and then share the screen.
I guess it's very, very shy is what it is. And it doesn't really want to show. All right, there we go. All right, well, let's start again. I'll share my screen.
There it is.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you, Stephen. We're good.
All right, so let's see if we can get that to show.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so here we are. So we are working on unlocking those doors and opening these doors to making fulfilling and productive lives for autistic individuals the rule rather than the exception. So we can start by getting into the mind of the autistic individual with the game of what is the difference between the picture on the top and the picture on the bottom. And if you look at these pictures, you may notice that, for example, the yellow footer at the bottom of the pole is missing on the bottom picture towards the front, but you see it on the top. And there's about 12 more to go. So let's look for a few more. We look at the horse, the brown horse, and you see the strap is blue on the bottom and it's red on the top. Check out the zebra. The zebra is missing a stripe on its hind leg on the bottom. It also looks like somebody dropped a piece of paper or a coin on the bottom, on the floor, whereas it's not there at the top. So as we consider these pictures, and we consider all of these differences, which I have now circled, let's ask a few questions. What's it a picture of? It's a carousel. What animal is in the foreground? It's a zebra, although some people may remember it as a horse. When we get to questions 3 and 4, it becomes a little bit more difficult to recall. But since I believe in errorless learning, here are the pictures, and everybody can get an A on this little quiz. So why do I bring this up? I show these pictures because I now forced you to perceive these pictures as autistic people perceive the environment. We focus on detail, and often that can be at the expense of the greater whole. If we look at the literature, the diagnostic literature, it's referred to as a deficit in central coherence. So focusing perhaps too much on the individual components. However, as we consider detail-oriented thinking, perhaps there are situations where it's advantageous to be detail-oriented. Perhaps being a computer programmer, being a lawyer, an accountant, in many other situations. It might be possible to say that if we put a typical person in such a situation, that they have a deficit in detail-oriented thinking. So the idea here is to take the characteristics of autism that are so commonly considered as deficits or weaknesses and flip them around and consider them as strengths. So let's take a look at how that can happen through the concept of the 4 A's of autism. Now, the first A begins with awareness. And we're pretty good at awareness. We've been at it for over a generation. We've seen the diagnosed prevalence of autism go from 1 in 10,000, thought of as a rare psychiatric condition caused by poor parenting, to the realization that we now know, we don't really know what the cause or causes of autism are, but we have much better recognition. And the Center for Disease Control in the United States accepts an incidence rate of 1 in 44. That's a lot of autism. And what I tell educators is that if you don't have an autistic child in this class, the numbers will catch up with you and you'll have one in the next class. And it's this awareness that empowers us to recognize autism when it's at home or in the community, in education, in employment. And increasing numbers of autistic individuals reading about autism, self-diagnosing, and then getting that suspicion confirmed by a more formal diagnostic procedure. And all of this awareness builds a solid foundation for the next step, which is acceptance. Acceptance is when we realize that autistic characteristics are part of that person's makeup. It's a part of their profile. It's not something that we can or want to get rid of. And we see people now thinking more about, instead of curing autism or getting rid of autism, let's find a way to work with the characteristics as opposed to against them. And I think somebody needs to be muted because I can hear a lot of background.
Yeah, we're on it, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So acceptance. Acceptance is when, for example, we take the grade school student who perhaps is not interested in mathematics. We see very little motivation. So commonly what will happen is we'll do an interest inventory. What interests the child? How can these interests be used as a motivator or a reinforcer? And commonly a program will be set up that if you need to meet your math goals in order to regain access to your favorite activity. However, that's working against the characteristics of autism. If we work with the characteristics of autism and realize that one of the characteristics is incredibly intense interests and skills that can be developed in particular areas, and in this case, this child is fascinated by using a flight simulator on a computer, spends hours doing that. So instead of restricting that access, saying, if you meet your math goals, then you can get back to the flight simulator, let's find a way to use a computerized flight simulator to teach mathematics. And in that way, mathematics now becomes intrinsically reinforcing. And eventually the child realizes that as they learn mathematics, they get even better at their favorite activity of using that flight simulator. So it is this acceptance which brings us to the third A, which is appreciation. And that is where we value contributions that autistic people can make to society. For example, we're seeing many of the large computer companies such as Google, SAP, Microsoft, Apple, and others actively seeking autistic individuals because they know that many of us, or a number of us, can engage in computer geekery at a level that's much greater than anybody else. And in that way is a benefit to the organization, actively seeking autistic individuals. However, my question always is, what about everybody else? Because there are also many autistic people who have skills in other areas beyond IT. And we also need to consider, what about these individuals who perhaps need more supports in communication or social interaction or managing their schedule. And that fourth A, action, is the work that we need to put in, recognizing autism when it exists, working with the characteristics, using strength-based approaches, which you're going to hear a little bit later from Sarah, and valuing what we can contribute to society. So my charge to you is, what actions will you take to climb these stairs of awareness, acceptance, and appreciation of people who are autistic and with other differences in your lives? So what brings me here to talk about autism to you? Things were very typical for me at first. At 24 hours of age, my wife says I looked like an egg. And then at 18 months, like what happens to about 30% of us on the spectrum, the regressive autism bomb exploded, where I lost functional communication, had meltdowns, withdrew from the environment, and in brief, I became a very autistic little kid. There was so little known about autism, so little known as to the cause. We still don't know that much about the causes, but also so little known about recognizing it and what to do with autism that it took my parents a whole year to find a place for diagnosis. And when they did, now I'm 2.5, the doctors recommended institutionalization. But fortunately, my parents, like we see ever increasing numbers of parents throughout the world, they advocated on my behalf and convinced the school to take me in about a year. And it was during that year my parents implemented what we would today refer to as an intensive home-based early intervention program. And this was at a time when the concept of early intervention didn't even exist. And really what it was is that my parents figured out what I needed and provided for that. They matched strategies and interventions and education to my particular needs. And this is how we need to think about supporting autistic individuals. And then by doing so, I believe that we have the technology, we have the know-how, we have the wherewithal so that we can empower autistic individuals to lead fulfilling and productive lives, and to make that the rule rather than the exception. And in that way, we can turn away from these closed doors of deficit, disorder, and disability when we think about autism, and turn towards abilities. Ask the question, what can the autistic person do? And rather than being a bomb, autism, you might say, becomes da bomb, which means that person has the capacity to achieve incredible success. So let's take a look at a couple of hypothetical examples, very similar to what I've seen in a number of places. We have a man named Pavan, a young adult, who was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, now would be diagnosed with autism spectrum needing supports at level 1. And as we consider the characteristics of autism, which are so commonly defined as deficits in communication, social interaction, restricted interests, and various other things, let's not call them deficits, let's call them differences. And explore what are the employment implications for a man like this, who speaks very well and provides transportation system information to lost patrons at Shore and Sarah Junction. So communication, for those of us who speak well, we tend to be detailed, factual, data-driven, truthful, repetitive. Well, how many times have you asked someone to repeat directions when you're lost? How many of you want your directions in a detailed, factual manner? So the communication style works. What about social interaction? When things are predictable, well, it's a brief greeting, a request for directions. The people say thank you and then they leave. If people understand how Pavan interacts, then things work out very well. Where does Pavan get this information? Trains and transportation system information is one of the most common focused interests for individuals on the spectrum. And instead of looking at them as restricted interests and pathologizing them, let's look at them as a gift or a strength. And as a result, like many on the spectrum, he's memorized all this information. And he can access this information much faster than his coworkers who need references. And because this individual is autistic, he outperforms his typical coworkers. Well, this is all well and good for somebody on the spectrum who pretty much can do most things on his own. What about the individual who has more challenges? Someone like Sunita. She works in stockroom management in Walgreens, a big department store. And again, we consider the characteristics and consider them as differences in communication, social interaction. And let's just get rid of restricted interests and think of them as passions or highly focused interests. So Sunita has more challenges. She would be diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, needing supports at level 2, maybe level 3. Sunita doesn't speak, but she communicates by pointing at pictures using an iPad. And in doing so, she can communicate pretty well. She needs support for communication. Social interaction. She enjoys people who understand her and when interactions are predictable. And what does she do for her job? She takes packages from shipping, notes the stock number, and then matches that stock number to where that number is written on a shelf and places the item on the shelf in perfect position, making sure everything is neat and lined up. You don't need much, you don't need to speak much in order to do a job like this, because one of the characteristics of autism is a need for order and predictability. This type of job works for her very well, and she's very enthusiastic about it. And you might say that her motto is everything has a place and everything in its place. Get the job done. Often the most important thing about employment for autistic individuals is actually doing the job. And because she has the characteristics of autism, she ends up outperforming everybody else who might be bored out of their minds with a job like this. So as we come to a close for my presentation, we need to really consider whether autism is a series of deficits, disorder, and disability, or is it a set of abilities? And then what are you going to do? Thinking about these forays of autism, beginning with awareness, then on to acceptance, appreciation, and action. What can you do to transform what might be considered as a weakness or a challenge into a strength? So I've listed some common challenges that individuals on the autism spectrum face. And instead of considering them as a detraction or a weakness, it's a way to flip over on its head, consider it as a strength. Whether it's the youth in school, following structured tasks, keeping their desks and materials neat and organized, or whether it's an adult working on an assembly line, making sure that each object is perfectly formed, positioned, and in the right color. Need for routine. In school, following specific warm-up routines in physical education, for example. As an adult, well, I've yet to meet an employer who dislikes when an employee shows up at work on time every single day. Hypersensitivity to sound, a sensory issue. That's the student who may be able to stay in tune when playing in a musical ensemble in school. As an adult, I know one fellow on the spectrum who has extreme hypersensitivities to sound, and he's also an amazing audio engineer. So while things were very challenging for me as a child, fortunately I received the intervention and supports and education that I needed as an adult, initially from my parents, from a few selected professionals, and now my wife, where we met in college. And she is a musician, played principal harp in the Beijing Symphony for 9 years before coming to the United States. And we met through our common interest in music. And if you want to find out what life is like on her side of the autism spectrum, I encourage you to read my autobiography, Beyond the Wall, her contributions to my autobiography. And now, I spend most of my time in what might be considered as a sheltered workshop for people with Asperger's syndrome or autism needing supports at level 1, where we spend days, months, years, lifetimes perseverating on topics that maybe not everybody wants to listen to. We talk a lot. Sometimes social interaction between community members could be improved. And perhaps in those early days when the professionals recommended institutionalization for me, well, in some ways, maybe they were right, but what they didn't take into account or consider is that it would be an institution of higher education as a professor of special education at Adelphi University.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you as you all work for ways towards promoting success for individuals on the autism spectrum. And as we consider success, defining success, we have someone who's fulfilled and productive with their life. I would say they're successful as we go through our journey in life from goal to goal, from activity to activity. And I believe that if you've learned even just one thing about maybe better understanding the autistic individual who you support, then this is a success for you, just as it is for the individuals you support, who, whatever the increment of success they have from various experiences, we're all exactly where we need to be right now. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you in making fulfilling and productive lives for autistic individuals the rule rather than the exception.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, Stephen, you were saying about the books.
Oh, yeah, these are some of my books, and I was just about to turn everything back over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So I think timing. Great, perfect. Okay, we're synchronized. That's great. So, Dr. Stephen, thank you so much for that very insightful presentation. It's really interesting to hear more about autism from your perspective, and super interesting topic. So thank you for sharing the forays of autism with us. So our next guest I'd like to welcome is Sarah Norris. Sarah is joining us from Chicago this morning, and well, this morning for her and this evening for us. And Sarah is a presenter at Learn Autism, and also a founder and the lead occupational therapist at sensorycoach.com. So welcome, Sarah.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to share with us today your presentation on strength-based approaches to therapy. So I will hand the floor to you, and we're excited to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to take a moment and say that I'm just so pleased to be with you guys. And I'm sorry we weren't able to see the video. For those of you that are not familiar with the Akira Foundation, they do amazing work. They've done amazing work. They continue to do amazing work. And so I really feel like I'm speaking to peers, people that are going to really understand and get behind what I'm having to say about working with families, working with clients from a strengths-based approach. And this pairs really nicely with what Dr. Shore was just talking about, being able to accept and, you know, move into that appreciation of there's so many wonderful things that autistic individuals bring to our world if we just look for them and we set them up to be successful. And the action step that he talks about, I think, is so key for therapists in particular to get behind, because many times we're the professionals that work closest with families. And so they really look to us to be their fortune tellers, to tell them what is possible about the future for their child. And I think it's really important for us to be careful and be aware of our own biases, our own opinions about what is possible for our clients. I think it's easy to come from a medical model where we really pathologize and we see things as disordered and challenged. And as Dr. Shore really encouraged us, you know, that really can limit an individual, and being able to just see those as differences or different abilities, I think is really key to helping us drop some of those limiting biases we might have. I think another thing is to highlight what Dr. Shore was talking about is get really curious about what your clients can do, what they are interested in at whatever stage of life that you're working with them. And on the Learn Autism platform, there's a video I recorded about Affinity Therapy, which is just one example of a way to use someone's interests to help them build connections with others. And finding something that they're interested in and get them involved in that, they can sometimes have those abilities that far outpace their peers because of all of those characteristics that Dr. Shore talked about. So getting them involved in things where they can connect through those shared interests, like Dr. Shore and his wife met through their shared interest of music. That is the key to unlocking those doors, like he said. So again, as therapists, it's something that we can be really curious about and pay attention to those strengths, those interests, and figure out how to not use them as a carrot for them to work towards so that they can earn it, but have it be something that's embedded in therapy, embedded in their life in a way where they can really shine and build those skills. I really like this quote from Dr. Christy Patton, who I think is a friend of Dr. Shore's, but she's an occupational therapist and she's a professor at New York University. And she says, no one builds their life on remediated weaknesses. I'm going to say that again. No one builds their life on remediated. I don't know how I got muted there. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
As I was saying, I believe that those of you that are professionals supporting individuals on the autism spectrum, you didn't choose that path because you were bad at it. You probably chose that path because you were passionate about it. Maybe it was a special interest of yours, and you're probably very good at it. And you wouldn't have gone into that if it was an area of weakness for you. So turning the lens on yourself and thinking about what life would have been like if people constantly had you try to work on things that you were not good at, day after day, hour after hour. That's a recipe for misery. And what we're hearing from adult autistic advocates, they're telling us about the trauma and the harm that's been done because of that very approach. So sometimes it can be hard to find what someone is interested in, and it takes time. So that's where that curiosity comes in, just staying curious, being watchful, and following your client's lead as much as you can. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is the importance of listening to your clients. And that's not always by listening to their words. You can also listen to non-speaking clients or clients who have yet to gain language. You can also really listen to adults who have been through a childhood as an autistic individual. They sometimes have very insightful things to say, and you can connect with them on YouTube, on Facebook, pretty much any social media platform. They're everywhere. If you search for actually autistic as a hashtag. I think what's really key though is to give a voice to non-speaking clients as soon as you can. And this means guaranteeing early access to augmentative communication. So this is like the example that Dr. Shore used of Sunita using the picture exchange communication system as her way of communicating. It's a support that helps her be successful in her job and in her social life. So working with the speech therapists on the team, if you're not a speech therapist, really helping to explore what kind of communication is going to be effective for an individual is, I feel like, one of the first goals that you should be looking at with someone who is non-speaking. And sometimes sign language can be a shortcut if you don't have access to technology. It can also be helpful if technology goes down and someone doesn't have access to it. Having a handful of signs where they can get by and signal yes, no, and some basic needs like eat, drink, and go to the bathroom. Those can all be really helpful if someone's non-speaking. But above all else, to really listen to your clients, I think it takes time getting to know them because language and expression is so unique to each individual. So you can kind of know generally what body language means, what facial expressions mean, what different vocalizations might mean. But spending time with the client and checking to see if what you think they mean actually mean what you think they mean. An example of this is some clients will smile when they're uncomfortable. And generally we think, oh, they're smiling, they must really enjoy this. But sometimes it means they're very uncomfortable. So taking some time being curious about what does that smile mean for them in this moment can be really, really important. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the importance of connection for clients. there's a lot of really good research out there that talk about outcomes for individuals of all disabilities being so much better than when they have positive connections. They have supportive relationships. They have friendships. Those are things that help, them be someone who ends up having a job, someone who ends up having a successful marriage, being someone who feels like they belong in the world. So I feel like relationships are probably the second most important thing you can focus on with clients. And many times when you're working with autistic individuals, relationships can be challenging because, there could be the communication barriers, there could be some sensory issues that really impact someone's ability to be present with another person. So I really like the DIR floor time approach for helping to keep relationships in the forefront of your treatment. And the DIR stands for Developmental Individual Differences and Relationships. So the developmental part is you're looking at the individual's development, not their age, to see what's appropriate for them. And in floor time therapy, they talk about moving up and down the ladder of development. And when you move down the ladder, that means you're acting younger than your age. And the reason individuals do that is it's a return to safety. If they feel stressed out or unsafe in any way, they tend to drop that developmental level and go back to where they feel safe. They're not taking risks. They're not going to challenge themselves. They're going to go back to what's easy out of safety. So that's communication. And that's when you see that behavior, it's not necessarily regression. It just means that there's an increase in stress. And so the individual needs additional support, time to come back and to be ready to get started on what they're working on again. Another thing I really like about the floor time approach is how they really focus on attuning to individuals. And that means getting on the same wavelength, really understanding and connecting with an individual as the very first thing that you do. And recognizing, the client that you saw last week may not be the same client that you see today, because they may have had a more stressful or a more supportive week in between your sessions. So being able to meet them where they're at in the moment, and if they are in a more regressed, a lower developmental level state, moving to regulation and co-regulation as a goal. So helping them feel safe again and throwing all your other goals out the window, because if you stay focused on skills and developing skills and you don't pay attention to their regulation, you don't pay attention to connection with them, it's going to be really challenging to motivate them. And so while they may be able to go through it kind of robotically, or if they're not enjoying it, they're not actually going to retain the skills very well. And there won't be much generalization or carryover of those skills. And then I think the last part of DIR is the relationship. And this is speaking specifically to the parent-child relationship, which I think is paramount for us to be supporting as therapists. And it depends on your clinic and your setting, whether or not the parents can be involved. But I really encourage therapists to take the time to make a connection with the family, if at all possible. There's 3 different relationships that you should be thinking about at all times when you're working with the client. And that is your relationship with the client as number 1, your relationship with the family, the parents or the carers, as number 2. But probably the most important is thinking about the relationship between the client and their family or their carers or their parents, because that's what's going to impact their development and their regulation the most. So I think it's really important to think about, is it possible to have the parents involved in treatment somehow? And if so, that's wonderful. One of my mentors, Lucy Jane Miller, who's an occupational therapist, would say to me, give away those magic moments with your clients to the parents. Let them be the one to experience that moment where they do something for the first time, where they say their first word or take their first step. or they complete the puzzle for the first time. For those of you that have your own children, I think you can imagine what it would feel like to miss your child's first word or your child's first step because they were outside of your sight when it happened. And because these individuals are so delayed sometimes, many times those firsts do happen in the therapy clinic. And it's wonderful if the parents can be there and be involved in those moments, because that's what builds that connection and that bond and a sense of pride and accomplishment for the client and the parents. So just to summarize, I wanted to really encourage you guys to think about the strengths. Think about what your clients can do. Think about what they're interested in. And take the time to be creative about how do you incorporate their interests into your work? And how do you encourage families to incorporate their interests into their time at home? Because the best therapy happens outside of the therapy room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was a wonderful presentation and very insightful, I think, for all professionals that are listening, just to see it from a, you know, a different perspective, and just how much working together with parents and sharing these information can be so useful for the development of the child, and also to get to know them better. So that's wonderful. I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that presentation with us. And now Stephen and I will share a little bit more with you about Learn Autism. And you'll be very pleased to know, after those great presentations from both Sarah and Dr. Shore, that we have so many more presentations from Stephen and Sarah on the Learn Autism platform. So we'll just move to the next slide now, and we can talk about how Learn Autism, Stephen, can share, and we can share more about how Learn Autism can support professionals with the app.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to talk about that. Our work is research-based, yet provided in easy to understand, quick, short videos that can be easily, with the information that can be easily implemented by professionals. So whether you're an occupational therapist, an educator, a physician, you better understand the characteristics of autism, and also how to match well thought out approaches to individual needs. For physicians, it's important to have the background knowledge that Learn Autism can provide, so that you can then turn around and have resources for parents. So because they desperately need resources and information so that they can support their autistic child. And finally, healthcare systems. Healthcare resources are spread thin, especially during this time of the pandemic, and the greater that we can increase our efficiency in using our resources and be able to direct people immediately to sources that will be of help to them, the better off we'll be. And in that way, we're supporting individuals on the autism spectrum. Children will be able to get what they need, the supports they need, in a faster and more efficient manner. And eventually, autistic children do grow up to become adults. And so we have supports for adults on the autism spectrum as well.
Right. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for sharing that. And here's some of the features that are on the app right now. So these are just a few examples of what you might see if you take the time to log on to the app. So we have bite-sized video tutorials, as Stephen was saying, and including from our experts. So we have Stephen and Sarah who are with us today, but we also have a whole host of presenters who talk about all topics from pre-diagnosis, diagnosis, how to play with your child, lots and lots of different topics, and we're constantly adding to those to the videos as well. So there's a lot more to come, and really the whole point of Learn Autism for you as professionals really is to perhaps extend your knowledge, or to introduce you to perhaps different perspectives or different types of therapy that you might not be so familiar with. And also, as Stephen said, to really support families. So I'm sure that we get a lot of families that come and ask, especially during the time of diagnosis or pre or post diagnosis, just really to get more information. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to get unbiased factual information. So this really is a hub that really brings all of that information together in one place, so that parents can really make very educated decisions and choices about what their next steps might be. So to support the tutorials, we have workbooks, which really help you to confirm perhaps what you've learned and what you've understood, and how to plan your next steps. And the videos are actually downloadable, so you can watch them wherever and whenever is convenient for you. And we're delighted to let you know, very excited to let you know that they're now available in many languages, so with many subtitled languages. So they're now available with Malayalam and Hindi as well, which is great, and hopefully very useful for your community and for Kerala. So what I would like to ask, if anybody has any questions for the question and answer session, we'll be delighted to hear from you. Whilst you think about those, and if you could pop those in the chat, that would be wonderful, because the question and answer is coming straight after this video. So we're going to play this video now. Hopefully it will work, and hopefully we'll have some audio. And yeah, if you could put the questions in the chat, that would be wonderful. We'll make a start in a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, and we're going to play the original Akira Foundation video that we were unable to play at the start of the webisode. So we're going to put that on now. Okay, thank you.
Akira Foundation is a non-profitable organization established in 2018, which is based at Bekal in Kasaragod district of Kerala. Kasaragod district is in the northern ebb of the state of Kerala in India. The localites' health, education and rural sectors are underdeveloped, and the area also suffers from endosulfan tragedy. The tragedy, along with lack of adequate services, have left the victims of the mishap in an utter state of despair. According to National Human Rights Commission, more than 50,000 villagers of Kasaragod district are exposed to endosulfan pesticides, most of them affected by various disabilities. Our founder and chairman, Sri Akira Muhammad Abdul Aziz, along with his friend M.A. Rahman, a famous writer, fought for endosulfan tragedy, and he started Akira Foundation to reach the people with disabilities, to make them productive members, provided they are given equal access, support and inclusion in the society. The staring imminent health hazard and evaluating the existing centers for diagnosis of such inborn core disabilities, Akira Foundation pins down its thrust to the attention for the disabled. Our areas of intervention include community health and extension services, disability management, awareness and advocacy, empowerment and promotion, capacity building and resource development, research and publication, and partnership programs. The Foundation has established an institution for rehabilitation of these communities named Akira Foundation Center for Child Development, providing an integrated therapeutic approach for early detection and early intervention of disabilities, which include physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech-language pathology, special education, psychology, social work, music therapy, and palliative care services to enhance the multiple skills of children with special needs. Moving on to our achievements, we have received State Award for Best Institution in Disability Sector from KK Shailaja Teacher, Minister of Health, Government of Kerala in 2020. We are proud to announce that we are the first official music band for special needs children. We also got reference from Honorable MP Mr. Raj Mohan Unnithan in 0 hour of Lok Sabha. Akira Foundation has received Cherkalam Abdullah Memorial Ajwa Foundation Salute Award in 2021 for the excellent execution of empowerment programs organized for specially abled people. Our client, Master Azim Milimana, was nominated for International Children's Peace Prize Award by Kids Right Foundation. We conduct events and celebrate occasions for the upliftment of differently abled people and their family members who are facing various physical, emotional, economic, psychological, educational, cultural, health and medical issues in their day-to-day life.
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation and such wonderful work that you do at Akira Foundation. So thank you so much. So we're going to move on to our question and answers. So we have a question from, sorry, we'll just go forward a slide. Here we go. Thank you. So we're just going to go forward to this to Q&A. So we have a question from Robi Raju, who asks to Stephen, social communication disorder and ASD are confusing. Can you please comment on this, Stephen?
Yeah, well, social communication disorder is a new diagnosis that appeared in 2013 with the release of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, otherwise known as DSM 5. And this is a diagnosis where many people who were formerly diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome or sometimes high-functioning autism were now placed. So essentially, one way to think about it is that you have the characteristics of autism, but they're focused on the social piece.
Thank you, Stephen. So I hope that helps to answer your question there, Robi. Okay, so next question to Sarah. Sarah, so there's a few layered questions here. So we have somebody asking how to introduce an autistic client to schedule making, so daily timetables, how to categorize and organize urgent items, and how we can help and encourage and support sticking to schedules.
Yeah, these are great questions, and it's definitely going to depend on the individual that you're working with. I will say, generally speaking, start simple and help them understand that there is meaning to whatever system that you're using. So you may start with a first then kind of picture or word-based schedule where you're just communicating, and it's like a visual that they can see and perhaps even interact with, where they can know, okay, right now this is what we're doing. After we're done with this, we're going to do this. So you can do that throughout the day. If they have someone supporting them throughout the day, you can start with just the first then and just keep moving whatever the next thing is to the first, and then place what's next in then. And that way you are staying kind of focused in this small amount of time, which is usually easier to process. Having that understanding of right now, this is what we're doing. When we're finished, we're going to move on to this. And then from that, you can build, a third step. So it can be first, then last. I don't like the last because to me, it seems like we're done. We're not going to do any more. So I like to do just 1, 2, 3. And again, you can move the things over as you're completing them.
Okay. No, I was going to say, we actually, thank you, Sarah. We actually have some videos on First Next on the Learn Autism app as well, which will give you a really good example of what Sarah's talking about, because that's a fantastic suggestion and resource to get started with schedules, which is wonderful. Sorry, were you going to continue?
Yeah, I would just say also in the visual supports video that I did, I kind of go through some more ways to use visuals as a support. And when it comes to like those special events or those big things, like maybe they have a doctor's appointment coming, or just depending on what it is, it can be something that you can use more of a calendar. And this does require them to have an understanding of days. So you may need to work on that first, but you can have a calendar and you can put a picture or a word on the calendar on the day that it is, and you can help them count 3 more days, 2 more days, 1 more day, to help them understand the passage of time. And then there was a third part of that, Allison, I forget.
It was how to introduce autistic individuals to new environments. What's the best way, Sarah, with new environments?
Yeah, new environments can be really tricky, and it's important to know as much as you can about that new environment ahead of time. But it's also important to not overwhelm an individual with too much information. So if you're going to a new restaurant or you're traveling, you may pick some really critical pieces of information that are hopefully things that they will like and they will enjoy. So it may be, oh, they have your favorite fish at this restaurant, or, oh, they have a fish tank at this restaurant. Whatever it is that might be appealing to them, that gives them something to look forward to rather than dread the outing. And then making sure that you do whatever you can to support their regulation during the trip. So that may be taking along something that's a comfort item to them, something that helps them cope in difficult situations. And then doing what you can to adjust the environment if you have any control over that. So for some individuals, it might be, let's bring some noise canceling headphones because we know it's going to be loud. It may be something that you can ask the restaurant owners or the shop owners or whoever to maybe turn down the volume on the music. And then just kind of going with the individual's needs and making sure that you're doing everything you can to support them. And also have an exit strategy. So if you do see that it's just too much and it's overwhelming, make sure you can provide some sort of comfort space for them to retreat to. So that might be the car, it might be a bathroom, or you might be able to return home. But having a place where they can sort of settle, re-soothe themselves, perhaps go back at another time. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 attempts for someone to accept a new environment. So just be aware of that.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. We also have another question from Felix, and I know that we don't have our speech pathologist presenter here, Deborah Beckman, but I wonder if you would like to maybe attempt to answer his question, which is a lack of speech associated with autism correctable through therapy?
Well, I got a few things to say about that.
Thank you, Stephen.
And one is some autistic people will be able to gain or regain speech. I lost speech at 18 months and then started getting it back with the help of therapy at age 4. There are other individuals who have a much harder time learning how to speak. And for that reason, for those individuals who have not learned to speak yet or have a difficult time in speaking, it's so important to find a reliable means of communication. And that may be by using picture exchange communication systems, essentially pointing at pictures to communicate. Other autistic people will type to communicate. I know many autistic people who don't speak, but once you get them on an assistive communication device, they have the same range of intelligence as anybody else.
Thank you, Stephen. That's fascinating.
Sure.
Right, okay, so we have another question from Ginny Ann, and they are asking, how can we find out the special abilities of autistic individuals? So how can we home in on that and really figure out what their interests are?
Through observation. What does the person like to do? How do they spend most of their time? Or would spend most of their time if you let them do it? And that tends to lead to interests. Because we tend to spend more time or want to spend more time doing things we're good at. The things we are good at, we tend to spend more time. And sometimes these interests, like for me at age 4, I was taking apart watches with a sharp knife and getting them back together again, still working and no pieces left over. And maybe that could have been a pathway to future areas of study or even employment as a watchmaker or a watch repairman. Now that was way back at age 4. Sometimes there are interests that don't directly lead to perhaps future areas of study or employment. However, it is possible to use that interest as a jumping off point to something that may be more useful later on as for areas of study or employment.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. That's interesting to see how these things can all link into, future employment, which is great. Okay, and the final question is from Ginny Raj, who is asking rehabilitation or occupation. So rehabilitation therapy or occupational therapy, which is a better approach for an autistic child age 6? Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I am a big proponent of team support when you're working with an individual. So my answer would be both. And if that's not possible, I think start with whoever connects with the client better. So maybe have an initial session with both providers and then communicate between providers how that went. And then select whoever the child is more responsive to. Because like I said, every individual is different. And so it's hard to say for sure one or the other. They're both very valuable. And if you can have both, go for both. But if you have to choose just one, go with the one that connects best with the client.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. So we've actually, we'll come to our next slide because we're just coming to our closing now. So thank you to Stephen and Sarah for answering those questions. And if there is anybody, I know that there are a few questions still coming in. So please share those questions with us and we'll be very happy to answer those and get back to you. So we would like to conclude this presentation by sharing with you a wonderful, what we think is a wonderful gift to you, which is the access to the Learn Autism app for free. So you can access by scanning the QR code here on the screen. So please take a photograph of it if you can get your cameras out, or you can see at the bottom of the screen here you can go to learnautism.com/join and use the exclusive code for Akira, which is Akira 100. And feel free, please, to share with friends and colleagues, because it can be used in, the platform can be used in so many different ways to really help and support families, professionals and educators. And, you know, just Sarah and Stephen have just both touched on just a few of the topics today that we cover on the app. And we would love to hear your feedback, and we would love for you to take a look. So, you know, if you do know people that have not joined us on the webinar today, but feel that they could benefit from this, code is good for anybody that you would like to share it with. And, you know, if you have clinics, or you've got study colleagues or friends who have a family member that perhaps is going through that diagnosis process, or has a child with autism, or an individual, you know, even an adult with autism, then they'll be sure to find something on the app that is informative and useful, and to learn something new and just to gain more knowledge. So please feel free to share please feel free to share. Okay, so I'm going to now hand you over to Jisna Laxman and Jen Joji, who are going to close us out today. So Jisna and Jen, are you there to close us out? Here you are.
There is some questions also, I think, to be answered.
Will be answered.
Back to them and let them finish.
Are we able, Alison?
I'm sorry, we have I can hardly hear you on the audio. It's breaking.
I think they may have been talking about this more questions.
Yeah, we have got a few more questions, but I think we're going to need to come back to those questions and email the questions. We're going to email the answers to the people that asked them.
Okay. So, good day all. We deem it a great honor and privilege to propose that vote of thanks on this memorable occasion.
Let me first of all start by giving glory to Almighty God for making this Autism Webisode a resounding success.
We thank Dr. Stephen Shore and Ms. Sarah Norris, who despite of their busy schedules has found time to impart knowledge on the topic, the importance of autism education to achieve best possible outcomes.
We are grateful to Learn Autism Network for providing us a platform for conducting this webinar today.
We would also like to extend our gratitude to Mr. Shabazz, Senior ICT Access Innovation Specialist, Qatar, who acted as liaison between Learn Autism and Akira Foundation.
We would also like to place on record our sincere thanks to all participants of this webisode, without whom this event wouldn't be a great success.
My heartfelt thanks to the management and staff team of Akira Foundation for their guidance and encouragement.
Last but not least, we thank all the good hearts who work behind the screen. Thank you one and all, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us, and thank you to all of the Akira Foundation management and all of the participants. You've been absolutely wonderful, and thank you to Sarah and Dr. Stephen Shore for joining us today. And yeah, it's been a great pleasure. So thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody, and have a great morning or evening, wherever you might be. Have a great day.
Evening here.
Thanks, and you too.
Here in Kerala, an evening.
Have a good evening, Yasir. Thank you so much.
Stephen sir, wonderful presentation from and Sarah also. Thank you to all.
You can find more information about Sarah and Sensory Coach, which is the wonderful organization that she runs in Chicago, on Learn Autism's website. And also you can obviously learn more about Dr. Shore on Learn Autism's website as well. They're both wonderful individuals with so much information to share. It's fantastic. So please log on to Learn Autism for more of their insightful videos.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening and day.
Yeah.